So this is the game that I did recently for Ludum Dare Jam 45, or was it the Compo? Whatever one it was. Uh, I, basically, I didn't have enough time to finish it, because what usually happens when I do a jam is that I never have enough time to finish these things. So it's an unfinished game. However, I was experimenting with a couple of things with it. The first thing was, and I'll show you here. The easiest thing to do is to start off. I had this grandiose idea, so I don't know if you can see that there. Um, but the idea was that it was a sort of um, kind of in the beginning type thing, and the idea was that you started with nothing. It was kind of it was like what's it that one called? Evil Land, I think it is, where you start off with nothing, then you can move left and right, then you can move left, right, up and down, and then you can like use a sword, and that was the kind of general idea for it. And I I wondered how I could do like a heavily scripted um, thing. And so what I did was I came up with just a simple script system, and I'll get to that in just a second. In fact, I'll start up one of the scripts here. Narration, and then we go to narration base. Okay, so I'll start up Visual Studio just now. So we'll have it in the background, but I'll play through the game. The game doesn't take a long amount of time to play through. Um, maybe I should have. Maybe we'll wait until Visual Studio finishes. There you go. That's it done. I think. It's still thinking about it. Come on. Um, okay, here we go. Yeah. So I wanted something that was scripted, but then I could interact with it, or I could allow the player to interact with it when I wanted the player to interact with it, and turn things off and on and all this kind of stuff. So this is what I ended up doing. So you start the game, and you've got that there. Let me just crank up the desktop audio for a second. So it goes in there, and then this happens. I don't know if you heard that or not, but there's like a lightning strike. Oh, in fact, probably didn't, because I think I turned the volume off. Let me turn that again. Oops. Let me turn the volume on. Okay, so let's go to options first. So let's do the effects volume up there, and then we'll start the game. Okay, so we start the game, and then it's got this text here, and I had this idea like all through this thing here. I had this idea of this handwritten note in a kind of like a kind of sketch form type idea, and so yeah, there's the lightning there, so I can turn the desktop off, audio off again. And so it kind of gave you this idea that it was just like this infinite white thing here. The infinite white thing came from my wife. She said, why do you have color in it?" And I'm like, "Well, because you know, you need to have color." And she goes, what if it started off as white?" And I went, "Oh, that's an interesting idea." So I was like halfway through doing stuff, and I was like, okay, so I changed everything to white, and then I came up with this other backstory about how you had to paint the color in, and um, I just did this kind of simple block to start with and also to end with. So all of this is scripted. Everything you see here is scripted. I'm not touching the keyboard at all. Everything's scripted. But at this point, you get instruction to like move the blob thing left and right. So at that point, you can move it left and right. And so it talks about, it's desolate, devoid of color. And I thought, well, okay, it would be nice if the creature could like paint the color into the world, and that's kind of what I was saying here. So I had this thing where every time you move, it kind of slowly painted in the background color. So eventually, the, the material lerp that I used didn't quite get it right. This one here was just I had this. Oh, that was weird. Uh, so these things fall, um, and yeah, it was not great, but the idea was that you would have to avoid these things, and then you had to like jump. you you get that you don't have the jump ability, so that's me hitting the space bar. You don't have the jump ability, but you get given the jump ability. And Stereo is that you kind of built everything up. Uh, but I didn't finish it, so that was kind of meh. But what I did do was I came up with a few things that I kind of I thought was kind of neat. Um, the first thing was this narration behavior, and so I have this action runner. The narration behavior. Let me go back to here. If we go back to, if we open up the scene. So this is the game scene here. So these are the scripts. So each script is basically a scene, and I could have done it as a separate scene, but I didn't. uh, I just left it as one scene. I thought it would kind of fit with the flow. The object is in the scene and all that kind of stuff. So I just left it as in the scene. But it starts off with in the beginning is enabled, so it will automatically run. And then once that's finished, it then trips the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, and eventually finishes everything there. And then the rest of the world is up here. So um, the the scripting system, I that was kind of the idea that I had when I was sort of sitting down watching TV. I didn't start. Ludum Dare started at 6, and by about 10, I was like, okay, I'm not participating in it. I don't want to do this because the theme was starts with nothing, and I'm like, eh, like every game ever. Um, but then at 10 o'clock, I had this idea, and then by 11 o'clock, I'd like coded up the sort of the basic runner part of it. So the idea is that you have these narration behaviors, and then inside each narration behavior, so like if I take in the beginning, for example, we have just a laundry list of game objects. Again, it's a game jam. You don't need to be perfect about these things. So I have this laundry list of game objects that I'm going to interact with, and then I have a list of actions that I'm going to perform. And you could, have made a visual editor about this, and then, all the kind of good stuff that goes around it. But again, for a game jam, you just want to do something that's, you know, quick. So I have these like wait actions, I've got a fade up text, I've got the play sound action. This is the lightning strike, by the way. 4 lines of code. Pretty good for a lightning strike. Um, and then I wait like 5 seconds, then I fade the canvas away to nothing. So it's from fully on to nothing. This canvas, by the way, is this blackout here, and I just have a canvas group on it, and I set the alpha to 1, and then when I want to show everything, I set it to 0, and that's it. That's all that's there. But this runner that is the in the base class here, this action runner. If I go to this, I just have um, a list of actions, and those actions do something. It doesn't matter what you wanted to do; it will just do those actions. So what you do is you add the action that you want, that puts it into the queue, and then you call the run function, which is done down here. So you do start runner.run, and then that will start the coroutine, which is called shoot the runner, because I like Kasabian, so I thought it was a funny joke. Anyway, they have a song called Shoot the Runner. You should look it up. It's a good song. Anyway, so for each action, I go and grab the current action, and then I execute that action. And the action itself is basically an IEnumerator, and it just goes and does whatever it needs to do. So iAction is an interface, and it just has that. That's all it has in there. And then if we go to the actions, there's a base action, and the reason why there's a base action is because there is a run component, and the run component says, okay, run this action for this duration with this actual action. Action is a system class, and it performs a function. It's basically just a nameless function, and I've covered that in. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. but I've covered actions in a video I did a couple of years ago. They haven't changed. They are really powerful. So what this will do is you specify some kind of function to call that takes a float as a parameter, which is the actual delta time, and this little function here calls action, passes in the current delta time, and then at the very end there it calls action one to make sure that the last um, tick. So if you're going from 0 to 1, it always does 1. So the wait action, for example, the wait action is really super simple. It's just yield wait for seconds. That's an easy one. Um, the Where's the fade up canvas? Fade canvas. Um, the fade canvas is this function here. So this is the anonymous function that I pass in that says set the canvas groups alpha to some lerp value from to and then the delta time. That's what gets passed in there. So math lerp from to dt, and from and to are set up here. And all of these are very similar to this. So play sound action. This is a super simple one. It just plays the one shot and then just returns null. Um, so yes, I created these really cool actions. And the reason why I bring this are really cool actions. I created all these actions, and from these actions, I created the game from it, and it allowed me to script a whole bunch of different objects inside the game. The reason why I bring it up is because I had this idea. Um, I had a conversation, and I'll link it. I will mention the person's name in the video that I do for Frogger. Um, but it's all to do with the movement of the cars and the vehicles. I think I've been overthinking it. So what I want to do is in the next Frogger video, which I'm going to release on this Thursday, I'm going to address those problems, and I'm going to use a similar scripting system so that the rather than having a queue of objects, we use a pool of objects and we emit those vehicles out there. And we're going to do the same thing for the river objects and so on. And I think that will be better than what we have just now. But we can test it with one thing, the race car. The race car is a problem, and we need to fix that. So um, anyway, again, a link in the show notes. You can download the full source code for this. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in this, but there's little things that I did that was like a set volume here. Where's the other one? Slider volume, volume names. Where did I put that one? Oh, I can't remember where I saw that there. Yeah, I had auto destruct, had a message drop as well. Strange objects. Oh yeah, the creature locomotion, that was super simple. It was There was the jump. I had jump enabled, and I could enable jump and I could enable movement, and those were called inside um, the one of the actions. It called this function here. So yeah, super simple. There was one other thing though I thought was set volume start scene. That was it there. Okay, so start scene. I attach this to a button, and the start scene will just automatically fade out some component, which is it fades up the blackout, so it does a nice kind of fade to black, and then it will load the scene. Or if you don't have a canvas group, then it will just load the scene itself. Um, so yeah, it was kind of nice. And then all you did need to do then is just drop start scene on your button component, and I can show you that. So we go back to main menu. So if I click on the start button, for example, you see that I've got this start scene script here. So I don't need to wire anything up. It does it inside the script, and it has this optional panel group, which is just this fade in, fade out, the duration of the fade, and then what scene name to jump to. And then so when you click on that button, it automatically jumps you to the next scene, and that's all done inside this code here for start scene. So you can check that out in the notes below. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this rambling video. Check out the game, check out the code, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.